Well, hello. This is Kaarin Zoe Lee, and you're listening to Lotus Moon Productions. Welcome to LMP Music. Whatever the music, whatever the tune, we're here to learn, discuss, and promote the independent music scene. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the next 45 minutes as Shugo Hanasaki tackles the music industry one artist at a time.
Welcome back to the independent music side of Lotus Moon Productions. Today we're welcoming another synth pop artist whom I can't wait to speak to, but we're also trying something just a little different. As you guys know, Kaarin Zoe Lee has graciously donated her voice to my intros of the podcast, and she's back to not only speak to me, but also chat with our guest of the hour. So before we get to our musical guest, please help me welcome Kaarin Zoe Lee from Night Ride FM back to the podcast. How's it going today?
Hello, Shugo. Thank you for having me back. How are you?
I'm doing well, and I'm happy to have you back. Are you excited to dive into our guest of the hour?
Of course. I've been waiting to interview her myself.
As for our guest of the hour, she's a synthwave singer-songwriter from Toronto, Canada, who has been releasing some of the best synth pop music I've ever heard. She's also worked with other fellow synth artists such as Time Cop 1983, Sunglasses Kid, The Northern Lights, Michael Oakley, Powernerd, and so many more. So without further ado, she's known by many as DJP as well as the Synth Siren. Please help me welcome the one, the only Dana Jean Phoenix to the podcast. How's it going today for you?
Oh, it's going so well. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy to be here with both Kaarin and you. And yeah, it's great.
Hi, Dana.
Hi.
Haven't seen you since Outland.
I know. Oh, it feels like eons ago.
Were you planning on going to Neon Retro Fest?
Yeah. Well, it was shaping up to be a really exciting festival. And yeah, absolutely. I would have totally gone. But lo and behold, the world had different plans for us for this year.
Yeah, maybe next year.
Yeah.
I can't imagine how, COVID has affected so many people on the planet in so many different ways, especially artists as yourself.
Yeah, for sure. It's, for so many people, it's been a huge shift in our reality for our day-to-day lives. Myself, I pretty much do music full time. Count myself extremely fortunate and very, very lucky that I can say that. But I do like so many different things. Synthwave. I also do, some acting as well, voice acting, theater as well, perform in different sort of bands, playing events and weddings and bar mitzvahs and things like that. And I'm also like a coach as well. I teach piano and voice lessons. So there's a couple of those kind of avenues that have been completely canceled out for this year. So, but I'm really, really grateful that, I'm a part of this scene, the synthwave scene, and people are so supportive of the music. And they continue to be throughout this pandemic. It's been really, really incredible.
Yeah, over the past 6 years, you've been knocking out music out of the park. With examples like Dirty Shoes and Synth City and all the EPs and singles and collaborations that you've been doing. How do you continue to keep things fresh?
I think, you go and you live your life. Travel is definitely a huge source of inspiration. I love collaborating with people. I think collaboration has been really the key to my presence in the scene and just continuing to be creative. I love sort of the different inspiration that can come through working with different producers and songwriters and collaborators. So that's been, I think, really, really key, just getting to work with so many incredible people.
I imagine it's difficult over on Night Ride, too, keeping things fresh with everything that's going on, Kaarin?
Well, somewhat. I try to stay on top of the new releases, and there's tons of them, so I can keep that fresh. But as far as the format of the show goes, I'm locked into my old ways.
Well, at the end of the day, I think we all are, aren't we? With mentioning collaborating with Powernerd and everybody else earlier on the podcast, this year you released an amazing album entitled Megawave, and as it says on Bandcamp, When Dana Jean Phoenix combines with Powernerd, they go from synthwave to megawave, and I couldn't agree more. So before we get into discussion of the album, and before we share all of our thoughts on it, I wanted to share the album title track just to give everyone a quick taste of what is to come. How does that sound, Dana?
That sounds great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Sweet. All right. Well, let's start off with here's a 45-second clip of Megawave by Dana Jean Phoenix and Powernerd.
I love the Megawave. So why you we fighting our hearts went so far away? The future is ours to create. We shouldn't be fighting our hearts went so far away. The evening's come and the stars start shining. Wet feet in the sand and the tide gives a change.
Now, I think my favorite thing about that track is the video. It ignites my childhood. I remember meeting connections with random kids when I was on young trips, or when I was young on trips, the playground, beach, or even at a carnival, a fair, like similar to the video, and I won't spoil the ending to those who haven't seen it. But those connections were strong but brief, especially the part where both kids exchanged gifts. What inspired you to create that video and showcase that sort of message?
Well, the director, Filip Vukcevic, he's absolutely incredible. He has the biggest imagination. He's so creative, and he's just so gung-ho to make really exciting things happen. So we were sort of talking. I knew I wanted to work with him on another music video because he directed the music video for my song Only for One Night, which coincidentally was also a song produced by Powernerd that was on my Pixel Dust album. And yeah, we just knew we wanted to work together again. And he had the idea of sort of bringing in this Cobra Kai, Karate Kid sort of storyline into the mix. We had both finished watching the Cobra Kai series. I was completely smitten, I think, as was he. So yeah, just kind of snowballed from there. And man, it was a blast. Just casting for the video and finding locations and costuming, and yeah, really rad experience.
Can you and Kaarin remember any memories similar to that, like your childhood where you had brief encounters like that? Because, I mean, even coming from me, I can remember just off the top of my head, like going to a fair and I'm meeting this girl when I was like, I think 8 or 9 years old. And I was off, going to certain rides. My parents were like, don't go too far. And then I'd end up finding a kid or hanging out at a beach somewhere. And we would spend hours together. And then I would never see that person again.
Oh, that's so beautiful and sad at the same time. But there are these little memories that we hold on to, and very, very special, like sort of slice in time. Yeah, I certainly have, memories like that. My parents used to play baseball a lot, and we would always go on these baseball tournaments, and you'd meet just like all these random other kids on the playground that you'd hang out with while this baseball tournament was happening. So I totally have memories of just meeting super cool people, and then it's the end of the day and you've got to go your separate ways and you never see each other again.
What about you, Kaarin?
I can't say I have any specific memories of encounters like that, but I do love to write love stories, and a lot of them are very short, take place in the span of less than a day, and they're all different. They're all romantic in their own way, but they all come from my imagination, but not from my life.
It's almost like when those memories happen when you're a child, or if you have those brief encounters. I'm not necessarily religious or anything, but it's like as a kid, we need it at the time. Like we didn't know we needed it, but it's like when you're feeling lonely, or you're not able to bring a friend somewhere, and you're at the beach camping or something, and like in the video where that the boy meets the girl by the ocean, and then they just start kind of hanging out, like, and then at the end of the day, it's like Dana said, we go our separate ways, and that connection is gone, but it's also just as important. And even when you exchange those gifts, it's like, hey, I'll never see you again, but here's something to remember me by. And then somehow our memories just hold that.
Mhm. Yeah, it's kind of a shame. Like nowadays, I guess you could see it as a positive. We have social media, and so it's so easy to stay connected with people that we sort of meet on a whim, and we decide, hey, I'd like to keep in touch with this person. It reminds me a little bit of one of my favorite movies. Is it Before Sunrise or Before Sunset? Might be Before Sunset. Anyways, it's Julia Delpy and Ethan Hawke. And they're these two, young 20-somethings who meet on a train en route to, I think it's Vienna. And he somehow convinces this girl to get off the train with him, and they spend the whole night walking the streets of Vienna together. And at the end of the movie, they go their separate ways, and they decide not to exchange contact information and decide that they're going to meet. I think it's like a year later at the very same platform. It's really cool. Yeah, check it out. It's Before Sunrise, and it's directed by Richard Linklater.
A lot of the time when I watch your videos, I'm often brought back to that feeling like a kid aesthetic, like I was mentioning before in your videos. So what inspires you to have that 80s, 90s emotional feel, and how did you get introduced to synthwave?
I was in theater school when I came across synthwave music, and I tell this story, quite a bit because it's how it happened. I was in theater school, and I was sort of away from the downtown core at that point. And prior to that, I had been sort of working with musicians more in sort of a live collaborative sense. And so while I was away at theater school, I didn't really have the time or access anymore to these musicians, and kind of stumbled upon a few producers on SoundCloud who are putting out synthwave music, and I was just instantly drawn to it. I've always really been fascinated by synthesizers, electronic music, and the 80s, the 90s, everything retro. So decided that I wanted to start collaborating with some of these producers, and it just very quickly snowballed, very organically, and it just felt good.
Now, I think, Kaarin, you explained how you got into synthwave, I believe, on our previous podcast, or you might have told me off air, but could you explain to us, too, how you got into synthwave and why is it so close to you?
I got into synthwave by accident. We were listening to one of Matt's favorites, my husband, Matt. We were listening to Rat-a-tat, an electronic duo out of New York City. And this auto played Kavinsky's Night Call right after some of the songs that we know and love from Rat-a-tat. And that was a few years ago. I want to say 2014. And from there, I just let Spotify feed me a bunch of stuff. And it was mostly instrumentals. I didn't take note of the artists or the song titles. I just added them to a playlist. And then it was suggested by my brother-in-law, my husband's brother, who's a big EDM fan, and he loves to go to festivals and such. He travels for them. He was going to go to one in Argentina before the shutdown. And he said, you should look for synthwave festivals. And I did, and I found Outland in Toronto. And I knew the headliner names. And, of course, there were 7 or 8 artists on that lineup. And Dana Jean Phoenix was one of them. And, of course, I had to dig into the catalogs of the people that were going to be there. And I just fell in love with her because, goodness, I remember the days when tunes by Madonna and Paula Abdul were fresh. And I was just a little girl. And she just has that same sound. And I love it. Takes me back.
Oh, that's so lovely to hear. Thank you. Yeah.
It's true. It's totally true. Like all those 80s jams. I mean, I grew up listening to them a lot too. They were always on the radio. They were always something, like someone in my family was always playing something from the 80s, that old 80s feel. And for the longest time, I neglected it. Synthwave really took off, I think, in 2010 or so, with being popular again, that 80s old sound. But I mean, there were songs back then that even now I love, like, Depeche Mode, Tears for Fears. We had, well, even last night on that game show, we were singing Toto Africa.
Yeah.
And then
Fun times.
Well, yeah, it was hilarious. It was absolutely hilarious. Tina Turner too, and
Yeah.
even people like Kate Bush or the Fine Young Cannibals, like, she drives.
Yeah.
Like, there's so many more 80s jams I could list, but it was that vibe. It was that vibe that was just like, man, this is good music.
Yeah, totally.
Now, I think one of the most inspirational things that came out of Megawave was the last track on the album called Moves, Moves, Moves. I loved the message near the end of the track. It was a perfect way to end the album. Could you tell the audience what brought you to share it and what brought you to put those inspirational lyrics into the track?
I think the making of this album happened just before the pandemic hit. And I sort of realized that I was sort of on the cusp of kind of needing to make some transitions in my life, some changes. And I think for me, when the beauty of collaboration, like there's just really nothing like it when there's just this really amazing synergy that happens when you're making music. And I am constantly, I feel so lucky to be able to work with so many incredible people and play all of these live shows. And so that song was really just a dedication to the magic of collaboration and the ability to create something out of thin air. When people get on the same page and decide that we're, going to work as a team and say something.
Well, it's words that I needed to hear, because when I was first going through your album there, Megawave, I was like, wow, I needed to hear that message. I needed to hear those words, and I'm so happy you shared them.
Thanks. Yeah, I always try to do songs with sort of a self-empowerment theme. It's always something that's really important to me. Be the master of your own destiny, take matters into your own hands, try to create a positive space for people as much as you possibly can. And so, it was definitely, I wanted to end the album on that sort of high note of anything is possible. Just try to stay positive and create your reality. You have the power to do so.
And just one brief question about the Megawave video again, too, because I have to ask. Is there a sequel for it? Because it seemed like there was a cliffhanger.
Yeah. That was a little nod to what the Only for One Night video. So people should check that out if they were sort of curious as to what the ending was all about. But yeah, I think that's fair to say that sort of leaves it open-ended for potentially another video in the series.
I'm definitely interested in that. What about you, Kaarin?
Of course.
I will be done.
I cannot wait. I mean, 7 excellent, unique tracks on Megawave, but no, it doesn't stop there though. We got treated to 2 extra tracks on the album with 2 remixes that give each track a different vibe. I mean, we have Fight These Robots and Figure Me Out, and each remix takes each track on a different vibe. Why remixes of those 2 tracks?
Totally. Well, I knew that Figure Me Out was going to be the first single. And so I was really excited to have New Arcades jump on to remix that. They're great dudes, super talented, and so fun to hang out with. And they're great musicians and total pros. I played a show with them in London back in 2018, I believe it was. And then the following time I went to London to play in 2019, they were there as well. So just, had a total fun time with those guys. Knew I wanted them to be a part of the album. And then Strap Locked is also a total bud, amazing musician. So he just brings energy, whether it's live performance or his production, just super stellar. And I think a good friend of both Patty and I, so it kind of made sense.
Straplocked is a DJ on Night Ride FM now, by the way.
That's right. Go Straplocked.
And just to pimp out Night Ride more too, because not that website needs to be known around the world. Kaarin, please tell everybody about Night Ride once again.
Oh, nightride.fm. It's a website, internet radio, synthwave radio. There are a few channels on it. It's on the Rect network, and the Rect channel is for cyberpunk and stuff. So if you want to do your gaming, go to the Rect channel. Night Ride FM has live DJs. We have shows. We've got the State of Synth, which is a synthwave news show, and we try to keep everybody updated on the newest singles, new artists, and we do interviews too. So next year, I'm going to be doing 2 shows a week. My usual Thursday, North America, South America, whoever's in my time zone, whoever's awake. Then Tuesdays, UK, European, their evening, their time zone. So we'll get twice as many shows in, but only every 2 weeks there'll be an interview. So about half as many of the artists, I'm afraid. It's so much work.
Yeah, well, we're so grateful to you for putting it all together. It's just such a treat that
You'll be
you
back
invest so
on.
much time. Yeah, I love that.
Sweet.
Yeah, I mean Thursdays is my night now for Kaarin Zoe Lee on Night Ride FM. I'm not even gonna lie, because I mean I put it on, I sit back, play some video games, listen to you guys interview. I'm just jamming away with my TV on mute, and it's introduced me already to so much more synthwave I didn't even know that was out there. Like I thought I had quite the collection over the last few years, but man, I've been introduced to so much. So thank you, Kaarin, and thank you, Night Ride, for doing so much for the community.
Oh, we love it. We're happy to. And these talented folks make it so easy.
Now, speaking of Figure Me Out too, about the remixes, I want to share that preview, the Figure Me Out track, before we talk about the track itself. So do you think you could do the honors, Kaarin, and introduce it to everybody?
Oh, yes. This is one of my favorite tracks from Megawave by Dana Jean Phoenix and Powernerd. This is Figure Me Out.
We had the perfect picture, yeah. And then you went and moved me out of position, over and over. Baby, you can figure me out. Waste your time chasing faces. Don't spend your life spinning around with no plan. It may take some deconstruction so we can get all the sides right again. Hey! Sometimes it might be confusing, this algorithm you're using. Could use a little fine tuning to win your mind to some losing. Just trust I'm not totally young.
Welcome back to the podcast, ladies and gentlemen. Now, we need to discuss one thing before we talk about the lyrics, the inspiration, the creativity behind the video, and that is Dana's love for Rubik's Cubes.
Yes. I love it. They're just so fun. I actually have always wanted to solve a Rubik's Cube. I had a friend when I was really young, and she could solve them in like under a minute, or maybe it was more time than that. And just to me, it was just so amazing. And I always wanted to learn how to do it, but I never really followed up on it. And this past year, was it 2019? Actually, I think it was when I started. I was like, you know what? I'm going to learn how to solve a Rubik's Cube. It's going to happen. It's going to get done. And something really cool happens. Like there are certain algorithms that you can use to figure out a Rubik's Cube. But it got me thinking about. It's so funny how it seems counterintuitive when you're solving the Rubik's Cube. Oftentimes you'll be doing moves that make you feel like you're setting yourself backwards, like a bunch of steps, because the Rubik's Cube suddenly looks like it's together one moment, and then you've sort of got to rearrange it, and then it goes back to looking completely unsolved. And it kind of just reminded me of, it's kind of a metaphor for life and relationships at times. Sometimes you need to take a few steps back to kind of gain a little bit of clarity. Sometimes you have to, trudge through the mud a little bit to get to the other side of things and reach sort of an understanding and gain clarity.
What's your record?
My record is, I think I've done it in like a minute and 30 seconds. I think that's my best time. Maybe a minute and 26 seconds. Yeah, so there's like kids who do it in 10 seconds, so I still have a ways to go.
Now, I heard a story from a certain Neon Fox about a time that you went out to a ramen dinner, I believe, which I was already jealous about anyway. But then you told a story about you picked up a Rubik's Cube that was nearby, and you just solved it in front of him.
I can't remember the name of the restaurant, but they had amazing ramen. I hope they're still up and running in Toronto. But it's right down the street from Tilt, which is a great arcade bar in Toronto. It's like sort of the synthwave hangout, the spot. And I think Nina was in town, and I sort of suggested, let's all go out for ramen. And I think Jules and I were the only ones that could make it. And I was like, this is great. I'm going to be able to hang out with Jules, like get some one-on-one time with Jules. He's the coolest. And yeah, so we had some ramen, and there was a Rubik's Cube just on the bar, and I was like, yo, I'm gonna do this. It's time.
I'm so envious. That would have been cool to see.
It was really good ramen. Spicy.
Times did you have to solve it to get that figured out video? Figure me out video.
I had been practicing quite a bit. And, by that time I was like pretty good at like just being able to kind of mindlessly do it. So I think maybe we got like, I don't know, 5 or 6 different takes. I probably messed it up like the first 2 takes, and then we got 4 good ones. And then we just sort of picked the best one. That video was directed by Fat Al, by the way, and he did a terrific job putting that together.
Awesome.
I loved the tossing the cube to the other guy. Now, I'm actually unfamiliar who the other guy is in the video. Can you tell the audience about that and how that came to be Guitar Rift and everything?
Yeah, I don't think it's supposed to be a secret. I think he's okay with it. It's Patty from Powernerd.
Oh, wow. Look at that. Okay. I had no idea.
And I was like, yo, you're in Vienna, I'm in Toronto. Let's make it look like we're sharing the same Rubik's Cube. So I sent him a Rubik's Cube, a matching one. And it was so fun.
Oh, wow.
I love that keyboard solo too. The keytar solo. I mean, I've loved keytars for at least 2 decades now. I think I told either Michael about this or somebody else. I can't remember now, but it all came from my love for Japanese culture, because there's quite a few bands in Japan, like J-pop, who use keytars. And I'm like, oh, that looks so cool. But over here in Western culture, it was like, oh, keytars suck. And I was like, what you talking about? Keytars are the best.
They're the coolest. I love it so much. I feel like I'm putting on a superhero cape whenever I play that keytar. It's like another side of me emerges, and it's just like go time.
It's that Synth Siren that comes out.
Yeah.
Pink lights.
Yeah, well, I want to be lit up like a Christmas tree whenever I perform. So I figured Jareth, my keytar, needed some lights as well. Needed to bling him up a little bit.
That's a great name.
Jareth, he's the Goblin King in Labyrinth.
Super glam.
Yeah.
This is just such an awesome conversation.
Dana puts on a really good show. You need to see her live.
Aw, thanks, Kaarin. That means a lot. It's so fun performing.
I definitely shall. I mean, if one of these days I can get to Toronto, after everything around the world calms down, and I mean, I know I mentioned this offline to you too, Dana. I'll do anything in my power to help promote you, to get you to the Maritimes, get your name around Nova Scotia, get your name around New Brunswick, because there's quite a few venues here who definitely need the Dana Jean experience.
I need to get out to the East Coast. Like, the East Coast is the best. I've been to Halifax. I've been to St. John's, Newfoundland. East Coast. You guys know how to party. I'm there in a heartbeat.
Have you heard of the festival Future Forest?
I've heard of it. No, I've never been.
We've been to it a few different times, and it's incredible. It's like a massive rave music festival, music going on for like 3 or 4 days, and it's in the middle of the woods. And stages are made out of trees, and it's just there's vendors, and you can buy really cool gear. Like, people make unique things like bracelets, necklaces. You can buy pipes, all these really cool designs, blankets. And there's also a bunch of people who have food too. So I mean, any person who loves music like the way the 3 of us do has to at least visit Future Forest once, because it's an incredible weekend.
Oh wow! I'm looking at pictures right now, and it looks like totally insane.
It certainly is an insane weekend. You gotta come hydrolated.
All right, done. Yo, these pictures look lit. Okay, done. Definitely on my bucket list now.
Get you there to go and perform as well at some point. You blow everybody out of the water. You be on stage and everybody's like, "Who's this?" And you were like, "I'll show you who I am." You just rip out that keytar.
Bring Jareth with me. Works every time.
Sounds awesome.
Secret weapon.
Now, moving up to the present day, it was only a few days ago that you and Powernerd collaborated once again. I mean, his new album entitled Destroy to Create features you on the track The Ruins of Paradise. And we do have a preview of that track, so before we dive into the discussion behind it, here's a quick clip of The Ruins of Paradise by Powernerd featuring Dana Jean Phoenix off the new album Destroy to Create.
Open city and silence. Feel the smoke move through the air. Burning sun, an unexpected prisoner behind the walls. Too much to bear, so I got to rise up from the rubble.
Now, how did collaborating with Powernerd over the years come to be? I mean, you two have put out some excellent tracks over the years, especially Megawave, especially The Ruins of Paradise. I mean, you guys have fantastic chemistry. How did that all come to be?
He initially reached out to me, Powernerd Patty did, back in 2016 to collab on the song Flame from the album Testosterosa. And thus sort of began this collaboration. And then we performed live together in Vienna the first time I went out to Europe. I think he was the first person that I reached out to book a show in Europe. And he hooked me up with silent bookings in Vienna, and we put a show together. And, you know, sort of my tour was off to a running start. And then we played another show in Vienna the following year, which was really amazing. I was supposed to go back again to Vienna this year, but unfortunately that's been postponed. It will happen. We're hoping that maybe October of 2021. But yeah, just through the years, we've continued to collaborate. Just a really awesome energy, great vibe. And I think it really helps that we played some really killer live shows together. And just a really cool guy, just awesome.
I mean, his music is incredible. I love jamming to it, and Flame is actually one of my. I think Flame was actually the first track I ever heard that actually introduced me to you.
Oh wow, yeah, cool. Yeah, I can't say enough great things about Patty. He's so versatile. He's so amazingly talented. He's a great musician. He's an incredible producer. And yeah, like I said, versatile. There's always a playfulness to his production that I really notice comes out. And I gravitate towards kind of stuff that's maybe a little bit playful and tongue-in-cheek. So yeah, it's he's awesome.
Now, obviously, and I've mentioned this before on previous podcasts as well, with lyrics and how they can be perceived very differently from whomever is listening to it. But with The Ruins of Paradise, what was the inspiration behind those lyrics?
Kind of heavy, just sort of going through a lot of personal transitions. And I was certainly at the time making some kind of transitions in my life as well. So it just sort of was fitting for the sort of theme of the album. And just this, kind of year in general. We've been dealt this hand, and we've, had to find ways to try to cope and survive and hopefully thrive. In a climate that's been, pretty unexpected and, unique.
Is there any collaborators out there that you haven't been able to meet or connect with that you've just would love to be a part of?
Yeah, that's a great question. Mitch Murder, I think, is amazing. I'd love to work with him. Garth Knight is really wicked. I think Beckett's got some really fantastic stuff. There's so many amazing producers out there that I'd love to work with.
I mean, I was just thinking off the top of my head, Dana Jean Phoenix featuring The Midnight.
Yeah. Oh, they put on a wicked show. I saw them back in Toronto maybe 2 years ago. And man, what a killer show. Those guys are the consummate professionals, man. Yeah, just total pros.
And Mitch Murder is amazing too. He's one of the few he's one of the top 5 synthwave artists that I first got into when I came into the scene a few years ago. I was like, oh, the name Mitch Murder, who's this? Started putting on his music. Oh, damn, this stuff's good.
Totally.
So now me and Kaarin were interested about live streams in the future too, because I know not a million, but artists all over the world have been doing things a lot differently this year because, as you know, so many artists have been affected by the pandemic and how not being able to release things and things have gotten delayed. So people have been putting on live streams and donations. So we're just wondering if there's any live streams or anything like that come in the future with Dana Jean Phoenix in 2021.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been in talks with a couple of different production companies or websites to do a live stream. This kind of past summer, I decided to kind of take a step back from everything I did. I was supposed to go on tour, and that obviously got postponed. And so I just sort of said, okay, you know what? I'm going to use this as an opportunity to really sort of get off the grid a little bit and kind of reconnect with nature and just sort of take a little bit of a breather and reassess some things. And I think that's important sometimes. You feel like maybe you're not doing enough in terms of, creating more content or making things happen, making moves, as it were. But I think it's also really important in life sometimes to take some time to reflect and nourish and nurture your soul. They say that in theater a lot, like to be a good actor, you have to experience life sometimes. You can't always be working. You've got to sort of live your life a little bit, take some time, and then you're that much richer and you have more experience to kind of pull and draw from to create more art in the future.
That almost makes me think of that old David, I think it's David Spade, from Just Shoot Me.
Yeah.
I think it makes me think of that Christmas movie that he was in. Or not Christmas movie, but he had to redo Christmas to get the part. Do you know what I mean? And he got Candyland for Christmas.
Oh, oh my gosh, I love David Spade. No, this is not ringing a bell though.
I can't remember the movie. And now, Kaarin, do you know the movie I'm talking about?
I do not. I know David Spade and a lot of his work. I don't know a Christmas movie that he was in.
Oh no. Okay, well.
That's so random. I was just thinking the other day, I would love to rewatch Tommy Boy. Like Chris Farley was like my childhood hero, and Tommy Boy was such a good movie with David Spade.
Oh yeah. Classic.
Yeah.
Bees. I'm gonna use that.
What's that?
The bees. He gets pulled over. He pretends there's bees.
Yeah. Oh, so many quotable moments. I love it. I can remember this is before I realized I wanted to be a musician. I was like in grade, I don't know how old I was when Chris Farley died, but he was like my hero. And my dream was to work with him and be in a movie with him when I was like, I don't know, 4 or 5. And I remember him dying. And I just like have this memory of like walking to school and like teardrops just like hitting my shoes because I was so devastated that my hero was gone and I couldn't comprehend it. I was like, how does Chris Farley not exist anymore? That's not possible.
Aww.
I just remembered too, and I don't mean to interrupt the conversation. I looked it up and breaking the fourth wall for all the people who were listening. And apologies if you heard my loud keyboard, but I remembered the movie. It was Dickie Roberts' former child star.
Oh, I do know that movie. Just not as a Christmas movie.
Yeah, he had to go through Christmas again because he was trying to get the part and he didn't have the emotion. So he had to relive Christmas within their family.
Oh.
And when you were speaking about that, Tina, that reminded me of it.
Right.
I remember he had to live with a family and be treated like a kid.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do remember that movie.
The big thing was he experienced Christmas again, and he never got Candyland as a kid. And the family that he was with gave him Candyland for Christmas, and that gave him the feeling. That taught him the experience. As you were talking about with actors, sometimes they need to live life. And that just reminded me of that. And I was like, all I could think about was David Spade.
Amazing.
I'm glad that we're all familiar with that movie now.
I've never seen it. I'm looking at the poster here now, and I realize I've never seen it. Right.
I saw it when it came out.
Yeah, I saw it a few times when it first came out. When I was younger, and I was like, this movie's hilarious.
Okay, all right.
Give it a go sometime if you got nothing to do.
Yeah. He's got some. It looks like some sweet, threads that he's sporting in this movie.
So I mean, I could use this to segue into this pretty easy. I mean, we got about 15 minutes left of the podcast, and we mentioned that we were going to play some 80s, 90s things, and Dickie Roberts, being an actor in the 80s and everything, we could totally use that to segue into it because why not? It's my podcast. So I was thinking, the idea was less of a game, but I thought it'd be fun for the listeners to hear about our favorite 80s, 90s things, since we're talking about synth pop And a lot of your videos, they have that 80s, 90s aesthetic, which I absolutely adore. I love it to bits. So I thought it would be fun just for us to, the three of us, to talk about a few of our favorite tracks from the 80s, maybe a few favorite few tracks from the 90s, some movies, TV shows, even snacks like Dunkaroos, for example.
Oh,
You know?
yeah.
So yeah, so I mean, we could talk about any of that stuff. So I mean, where do you want to begin?
Oh, geez. That's a lot. Dunkaroos. I mean, you really lit something up in my mind with Dunkaroos. Fruit roll-ups, fruit by the
Yeah.
foot. Those
Absolutely.
are the best. Yeah.
Gushers.
Gushers. Yes. Those are amazing. Explosion of flavor.
Explosion of sugary death.
Yeah.
I would say like the 80s and 90s were just a couple of decades of shameless use of sugar.
Yeah. Just like the brightest colors, the most danciest, poppiest music. Everything was just sugar and energy and color and amazingness.
Speaking of food too, I mean, I actually had to look this up because I was generally curious. Apparently, Dairy Queen introduced blizzards in 1985.
Really? Oh, I've had my fair share of blizzards.
Yeah, me too, right?
Long time ago, though, not so much anymore. But in my youth, many a blizzard
when
was
our
had.
bodies let us.
Yeah, those were the days, man.
And don't forget about triple power push pops.
Triple power push pops. How did I not know about this?
Kaarin, are you aware?
I know about push pops, but what's the triple power?
You guys never had them? Okay, well, they came out in the 80s, but they were around here when I was a kid. You know the push pops where you twist it and the candy comes up, right? Well, the triple power push pop, geez, this is a freaking tongue twister, isn't it? The triple power push pops had 3 flavors that you could push up, each individually.
Wow.
Oh, the hard candy.
Yeah.
I do remember that. It was divided up into like a little pie shape, and each of the thirds. See, I was thinking of the ice cream.
Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah.
I don't even know if they make those anymore. It's like ice cream in a toilet paper tube, and then they have a little stopper to push it out the top.
That's kind of ringing a bell.
Are Dunkaroos still available in the States, Karen?
I think they just made a comeback.
I haven't seen them around here for a while.
I saw a picture, but it was a recent picture, and I don't know what area it's in. It was just on Facebook somewhere. Somebody was saying Dunkaroos came back. I don't go looking for them, so I don't know.
Favorite Dunkaroo flavor? Go.
I don't think I've even had them before.
Oh, you poor dear. I just want to hold you.
I don't remember specific flavor names, but there was like a chocolate cookie, am I right? With like a white frosting dip. And it had like sparkles in it or
Birthday
rainbow.
cake.
Birthday cake. That's the one.
That was my favorite too.
Yeah. Every day's your birthday when you're eating Dunkaroos.
For sure. And when I was a kid too in the 90s, it was all about the Lunchables.
Yeah, Lunchables were the shit, man. Yep.
And I think pizza was a novel item. What was that? What year did those come out? I don't even know. Pizza Lunchables. They were on the new wave of Lunchables.
Yeah, they had like hot dogs too.
Ew, really?
Yeah. I mean, I ate them as a kid, but now I'm not even going near them.
Yep.
Well, that's the food section of the 80s and 90s section.
I could go on all night.
Always go to the food. I can talk about food
Soda
all
pop.
night, baby.
What was it? It was fruit snacks, like soda pop fruit snacks.
So
The root beer one
delicious.
was the best.
Yes.
Might have been what they were called. So delicious.
So delicious.
Yeah.
For sure. So delicious was good too. Man, now all this talk, I just want to go back to being a kid again. Please, body, let me live like a child again.
Yeah. Oh man, those were the days.
To the both of you, Kaarin and Dana, can you name like at least 3 tracks that you really remember from the 80s, or even just that you heard in the 90s, but 3 tracks that came out in the 80s that you just loved growing up to?
Okay, well, when I was talking about earlier, hearing Madonna early on, I would say her hit "Cherish" from 1989. That one I mean, it wasn't like one of my favorites growing up, but definitely one of the most memorable from the era for me. And I really liked Hold On by Wilson Phillips, though I think that was 1990, huh? Not really 80s.
Ah, well, we'll count it.
And not really something that people think of when they hear 80s song, but I really like Elton John's I'm Still Standing.
Yes. Yeah, Elton John is a treasure.
Yeah. Good call.
Love that man.
I would love to hear Dana do that Wilson Phillips track.
Oh man, yeah. One day you're gonna wake up, cry. I don't know any of the words though.
Hey, we just heard.
Would you know? Would you say? Then you away if you hold on for one more day. Something like that.
Ladies and gentlemen, we just got a preview on Lotus Moon Productions of Dana Jean Phoenix's new single.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm happy.
I'm quite privy to Tears for Fears, the song Head Over Heels. I always come back to that song. It gives me this feeling that I can't describe, like longing, nostalgia, sadness, optimism. Like it just fills me with so much stuff whenever I hear it. I could literally listen to that song on a loop over and over again and never get sick of it.
Sowing the Seeds. I love that one too.
Oh, so good.
Yes.
That whole album, man. Oh, it was so good.
All these excellent bands from back then.
Yeah, totally. I think it's not 80s. It's more, I think it was 1990. But the song King of Wishful Thinking by Go West, that song was like always on a loop growing up. It was like always being played in the house. I think my mom just really loved the Pretty Woman soundtrack. That was a good tune, man. That's boss. Just like knocks.
One song that I was always humming to myself when I was on my bike at like 5 or 6 years old. I can't remember if this is from the 80s or 90s, but if I'm humming it at 5, 6 years old, then it must be older. So is that Venus song? It's like, I'm your Venus, like that one.
Yeah.
That was one of my favorite. That was one of my favorites growing up too.
Yeah, man.
And what about Tom Petty, Free Fallin'?
Ooh, Tom Petty. Oh, I love him so much. Yeah, he also gives me chills every time I hear him.
Yeah, Free Fallin' was one of those tracks that even stuck with me to this day. I absolutely love that song. It's a gorgeous song with beautiful lyrics.
Yeah. Legend.
Absolutely. I mean, now moving on to the 90s, though, what 3 tracks can you guys come up with from the 90s that you used to jam to?
Hanson. There's 50 tracks right there. Hanson.
Salt and Pepper. Like,
sure.
What a man. Oh, yo. That came out and I was like, who are these girls? They're amazing. They've got so much attitude. Wigfield Saturday Night. That was a huge jam growing up.
Speaking of Wigfield, actually, I saw her in concert 2 years ago.
Whoa, no way.
Yeah, they did a retro 90s tour. They her, Aqua, and Prozac. Do you know who Prozac is, Dana?
Yeah, Prozac. Were they only big in Canada? Were they?
Yeah, apparently, and not many people else know about them. But I met the band.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, they came over to Halifax. They were doing a retro 90s tour. They had Wigfield, Aqua, and Aqua, Prozac, and Wigfield. And Wigfield was the opening act. And everybody at the time, I forgot who Wigfield was. I knew Saturday Night. I knew her old songs from the 90s, but the name, like the artist name, didn't click in.
Yeah.
And she was the opening act, and the second I heard her music, I was like, oh my God, that's her. No way. Oh my Lord.
Yeah.
And I freaked out. And then, she was the opening act and people were still coming in. So I wish they had waited just a little bit longer because people were still coming in the door. But afterwards, Prozac came on and they told everybody after they were done the show that they were going to do a greet and meet. So me knowing this and my first time at a concert in like 15 years, I booked it down the hallway and lo and behold, I got to meet them.
Yes, that's awesome. So cool. I was definitely a huge, like, not gonna lie, can't hide this, Backstreet Boys and Spice Girls fan. Like, 100%. 100%. Backstreet Boys. I get giddy whenever I hear Brian Luttrell's voice to this day. It's just butter, pure butter.
I was so sad to hear about his heart issues. Do you remember those years?
I do.
Yeah, people were so sad about it. And he's fine, but I guess he doesn't feel like he can sing the same anymore.
Yeah. It's a real shame. Actually, yeah, I can't imagine that. Like that's so devastating to be a singer and have your voice go like that. I recently watched a Linda Ronstadt documentary that was really, really cool. She's got an amazing voice. I think she has Parkinson's now, and she can no longer sing. She just doesn't have access to her instrument the way she used to. It's really sad because, oh my God, what a giant.
It's got to be frustrating.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when people release that type of energy into the world, whether it be through instruments or music or even lyrics, I mean, that's like if something ever happened to that part of you where you're releasing all of that, I can't imagine. I just can't imagine, because one of the things that I look for, and actually one of the things I appreciate so much about the synthwave community, is you can feel the emotion through each track when you listen to it, whether it be an instrumental or have lyrics.
Yeah, I think that's something really special about synthwave. There's just sort of this feeling that you belong no matter what your take or your perspective or your style is. They're all valid. And I think that's something that's really beneficial that's come out of this, new age or this new era of not being signed to a major label. You don't have a record company dictating, what you have to look like, what you have to sound like. We just have the freedom to write songs, be ourselves and express ourselves the way we best see fit, and it's pretty cool because there's no filter.
I like the authenticity.
Yeah,
That's what I go for as well. Like for somebody who needs emotion in their tracks and their songs, that's probably one of the connections why I love synthwave so much. Is because, as I said, I can feel it. Like when you're singing your music, doesn't matter where you're singing that song from, I can feel it across the world. Like you put a lot of passion and emotion into your lyrics and into your voice.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I just love it. It's my outlet for sure. But you can also hear it in producers' music as well, like more instrumental stuff. If there isn't a singer, you can tell there's passion there with a track. So I don't think it's just designated to singers only in terms of being able to hear that palpable passion.
Yeah, the other day I was explaining synthwave instrumentals to somebody, and I was kind of thinking about it on the opera scale. Like, when you listen to opera, there's like a story to go along with it, and you can read it, you can hear the sounds, and you understand what the story is being. Well, it's kind of similar that way with synthwave. I mean, yes, you can take it away with different perspectives, but when you hear certain type of things, you can hear where, like, you can picture a racing vibe, you can picture a dark alley, you can picture, a bleak city or an 80s vibe. And as the lyrics go, or even if there is no lyrics, you can still feel that vibe, and it's almost like you can hear the story even if you're just listening to an instrumental.
Yeah, absolutely.
So just one final thing here for the 80s, 90s music before we sign off, and that if you guys could shout out just two fun 80s movies, just two fun 80s movies that you guys like to watch here and there, what would they be?
I would say Bill and Ted, for one. It can be both of them, a trilogy, all three now. The first two 80s movies, but the last one was recent. I still have to see it. See what else?
Labyrinth, I would say for sure, and like Scarface, Al Pacino. Just get anytime is a good time for Al Pacino.
Absolutely.
And like Studio Ghibli movies, Totoro.
Yeah.
Well, that wasn't Studio Ghibli, but I like 80s animes.
Yeah. My Neighbor Totoro is amazing.
Those are good shouts. Very, very good shouts. And the two that I'll add to the collection is Back to the Future. Love that trilogy to death. Have it on Blu-ray. Can't get enough of it. And how about The Lost Boys from 1987?
Yeah. Wicked.
Love that movie, especially around Halloween. It's perfect.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Well, before we end things, what are your guys' plans for the holidays?
Reconnecting with some family, like a very small kind of bubble. I've been quarantining for the last week and a half, so that I will be able to see two members of my family, which will be really nice. Working on some projects as well, which is exciting. I'm feeling actually creatively inspired lately, so doing some writing and some collaborations.
Sounds like an exciting time for Dana. What about you, Kaarin, for your holiday plans?
Not that exciting. I have no projects right now. I think we're just going to buckle down at home. And I'm preparing my kid for his next term in preschool and he's going back to virtual dance classes, and he's been out since last April because they just closed the school down. So now he's going to do it again, but in the living room.
Yeah.
Well, thank you once again. We'll wrap things up there. Thanks so much for sitting down with Kaarin and I, Dana. It was an absolute honor to connect with you.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It was a blast chatting with you both.
Yeah, I had fun.
I couldn't agree more. And could you share your social media with everyone, Dana, so people know where to find you?
Yes, absolutely. You can go to the hub, www.danajeanphoenix.com, or you can find me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, at Dana Jean Phoenix, and as well Bandcamp. Make sure you stop by Bandcamp and support. Much appreciated.
Thank you so much for that. And Kaarin, if you could share your social media as well, where can people find that great voice of yours?
Well, usually on nightride.fm, but that's not my website. You can find me specifically on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, all at Kaarin Zoe Lee. Add me. I'll add you back.
Perfect. Thank you as well. And as usual, you can find all of our socials at SoundCloud under Lotus Moon Productions, Facebook under Lotus Moon Productions, Instagram under Lotus M Productions because we're original, Twitter under Lotus Moon Prod, and you can search us on YouTube under Lotus Moon Productions. Be sure to get that subscriber count to 100 so we can finally have an official URL. This has been LMP Music. Please be kind to one another. Happy holidays, and we're wishing you all a fantastic new year. Be safe, and with that, we are signing off.